Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Where we really get into those topics that, you think you know. And today we're going to dive into mosques.
Oh, interesting.
I think most people, when they think of a mosque, they just picture, domes and minarets.
Right.
But it's a lot more than that.
It is. It's much more than that. And in fact, that's what we're going to look at in this deep dive. We're going to see the diversity of mosque architecture, the history, the cultural significance. We're going to look at it from different angles. We're going to look at it from the perspective of architectural history. We're going to look at personal accounts. And we're going to even touch on some global politics because, believe it or not, that all ties in.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, when I was, doing research for this, I was surprised, how much there is to it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how mosques are more than just static structures. They really reflect the beliefs, the ambitions, and even the anxieties of the societies that built them.
Okay, so let's just kind of start with a basic, if I say picture a mosque, I bet you're picturing that classic image, the big dome, the slender minarets.
Right, reaching for the sky, that iconic look.
Yeah, you got it.
That is the image that comes to mind for a lot of people, but it hasn't always been that way.
Oh, okay.
Really? Yeah. Early mosques had an incredible amount of architectural diversity. You wouldn't believe it.
So what did they look like? If you had to paint us a picture, what would we see if we went back in time to some of those early mosques?
Well, imagine this. You walk into a courtyard bathed in sunlight. You see rows of columns supporting intricately carved roofs and minarets, but not those needle-like spires we're used to. They resemble sturdy towers, much more grounded. A great example of this is the Great Mosque of Kairouan in Tunisia. And you know what? It doesn't even have a central dome.
Wow, that's surprising.
I know, right? Instead of a central dome, it kind of sprawls outwards, emphasizing open space. And it really gives you a sense of community. And then there's the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, a completely different style. It's got an octagonal base with this golden dome, a really unique structure. And these are just two examples, but they show you how diverse early mosques were.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So if there was so much diversity, how did we get to that, kind of one iconic look? What happened?
Well, that shift towards that dome and minaret style coincides with a really major turning point in history,
Okay.
the year 1453.
What happened in 1453?
That's when the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire.
Oh, wow. Yeah, big moment in history.
Absolutely. And the Ottomans, they were not just militarily powerful, but they were also really savvy when it came to using architecture to project their authority.
Okay.
You can almost see their thinking, right? Like, how do we make a statement here?
Yeah, how do we make a statement? We've conquered this incredible city.
Exactly. And what better way to do that than to draw inspiration from the city's most impressive building, the Hagia Sophia.
Oh, yeah?
This massive Byzantine cathedral with a huge dome that just dominated the skyline. It was a symbol of power, of architectural achievement. And the Ottomans, they saw its grandeur and they were like, we're going to take some inspiration from this.
Smart.
Right. So they incorporated that central dome, the cascading half domes, and, those slender minarets that we associate with mosques today. They created a style that kind of blended the Byzantine grandeur with their own Islamic identity.
Yeah, it's almost like they were saying, look at us. We've conquered this incredible city, and we're going to blend its magnificence with our own. And we're going to create something even more impressive.
Precisely. It was showcasing their dominion while also creating this new architectural language for their empire. It wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about power, about symbolism, and you know what? It worked. This style became deeply ingrained in Ottoman architecture. And a lot of that is thanks to the work of one architect in particular, a guy named Mimar Sinan.
Oh, okay, so he was like the architectural superstar of his time.
He was. Think Michelangelo, but for mosques.
Okay, so he wasn't just, like building mosques. He was really shaping an empire's image through his work.
Exactly. His masterpieces, like the Suleimani Mosque and the Selimi Mosque, they became the blueprints for Ottoman mosque architecture. They were grand, imposing structures, those soaring domes, those cascading half domes. It creates a sense of awe when you walk in. And his designs, they weren't just beautiful, they embodied the power, the ambition of the Ottoman Empire. And just like Michelangelo's work in Renaissance Italy, Sinan's mosques set a standard that would influence generations of architects.
Okay, so we're starting to see a ripple effect here. You've got the Ottomans, they create this new style. It's powerful. It spreads throughout their empire and even beyond.
Exactly. And that style, it became so closely associated with Islamic architecture that even centuries later, we're talking 20th century now, newly independent nations, they were looking to assert their identity. They wanted to project an image of power. And what did they do? They adopted this Ottoman-inspired style for their national mosques. It was like a visual shorthand for powerful Islamic state.
Yeah, it's interesting how that one style became so dominant,
Right.
especially because you said earlier that early mosques were much more diverse.
Yeah.
It seems like we went from, variety to almost like an architectural monoculture.
Right, and that's a great point, and it's important to remember that Islam is a global religion, and its architecture, it should reflect that diversity.
Yeah.
While the Ottoman style became dominant in many parts of the world, it's not the whole story.
Okay, so give me some examples. I mean, what about those places that resisted the Ottoman influence? What did their mosques look like?
Well, think of Morocco, for example. A lot of Moroccan mosques, they have a very distinct style. They often forego the dome altogether.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? Instead, they focus on intricate tile work, these unique minaret designs. And then you have Chinese mosques, which often incorporate elements of pagoda architecture. So they're blending Islamic traditions with local aesthetics.
So it's really cool. Even though the Ottoman style was really influential, Islamic architecture wasn't, like a one-size-fits-all situation.
Exactly. And that adaptability, that ability to blend with local traditions while still maintaining that core Islamic identity, that's one of the things that makes mosque architecture so fascinating to study.
Yeah, okay, I'm already seeing mosques in a whole new light. But, we've talked a lot about the outside. I want to go deeper. I want to know, what's it like to actually be inside a mosque?
Okay.
Can you paint me a sensory picture? What would I feel? What would I hear? What would I experience if I stepped inside?
Okay, well, before you even step inside, there's this crucial act of preparation. It's called wudu,
Oh, right. Voodoo. I've heard of that.
the ritual washing before prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's more than just physical cleansing, isn't it?
Yeah. What else is it?
It's a mindful transition. It's a way of preparing yourself, both physically and mentally, to enter a sacred space.
Mm.
And then, as you remove your shoes and step onto those soft carpets, you'll notice how the entire space is oriented towards Mecca,
Oh, yeah.
the direction that Muslims face during prayer.
Right, right.
This creates an immediate sense of reverence, of direction.
It's like even the layout of the mosque is designed to create a specific, like, atmosphere, like a sense of, being part of something larger than yourself.
Exactly. And then there's the sound. Imagine the call to prayer, the adhan.
Oh, yeah.
It echoes through the mosque. It's this beautiful, haunting melody calling the faithful to prayer. And it's a sound that resonates really deeply within the soul. It's a reminder of that spiritual dimension of life.
Mm.
And then during the prayer itself, you'll hear the imam leading the congregation in unison. Their voices blend together in this powerful expression of unity and submission to the divine. And then, between those communal prayers, you might hear just this quiet murmur of individual prayers,
Mm.
each person connecting with the divine in their own way. It's this beautiful tapestry of sound and silence.
It's really interesting. All of our sources, they describe it as a very layered experience. Like, it's not just the visuals, it's the sounds, the textures, the overall atmosphere. It's really engaging all of your senses.
You put it perfectly. It's a multi-sensory experience. It engages you on every level. And then beyond just the prayer, there's a sense of community.
Oh, yeah.
Mosques are spaces of gathering, of sharing, of support. And during Ramadan, for example, they come alive
I bet.
with this special energy. There's communal meals, nightly prayers. It's this palpable sense of shared spirituality.
And it's not just during Ramadan, right?
Yeah. Of course not. Mosques serve as hubs for social gatherings, celebrations, educational events, and even quiet moments of personal reflection all year round.
So it's really, a space that can, host a lively celebration one day
Absolutely.
and provide a quiet sanctuary for contemplation the next.
Exactly. They offer a sense of belonging, a space for connection. And that connection, it goes beyond religious observance. And that's really what makes them so fascinating. It's about community. It's about shared values. It's about supporting one another through life's journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? We've gone from talking about these, sturdy towers to these grand, awe-inspiring mosques. Makes you think about architecture and how it can be used to, project power, influence.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, we talked about the Ottoman Empire,
Yeah.
using architecture to solidify their authority. But their influence, it goes way beyond just their reign, doesn't it? Like, we
Oh.
still see those Ottoman-inspired mosques popping up everywhere, even today.
Right, exactly. And that brings us to a really interesting aspect of modern mosque architecture. It's tied to geopolitics, this idea of what they call soft power.
Okay, soft power. I feel like I should know what that is, but just break it down for me. What does that mean?
Sure, sure. It's actually not that complicated. So instead of using like, military might or economic sanctions, soft power is about using culture, ideas, and yeah, architecture to kind of influence how other countries see you.
So, like, if a country builds a beautiful mosque in another country, they're kind of saying, hey, look at us. We're influential. We've got good taste, and we share your values.
Yeah, exactly. And one country that's been particularly good at using mosque architecture as a form of soft power is Turkey, especially under President Erdogan.
Okay, I'm ready for some real world examples. What are we talking about here?
Well, Turkey has been funding the construction of mosques all over the globe. I mean, we're talking from
Okay.
Germany to Somalia. And a lot of these mosques, they're built in that grand Ottoman-inspired style that we've
Mhm.
been talking about.
Right?
It's a way for Turkey to, position itself as a leader in the Muslim world, strengthen its relationships with other countries.
Yeah, okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. You mentioned earlier that even Saudi Arabia, home to Mecca, has embraced that Ottoman style for some of its newer mosques. But Saudi Arabia has its own rich architectural traditions.
Right.
So why would they, like, look to the Ottomans for inspiration?
Well, I think it shows you just how enduring the power of that Ottoman style really is. I
Mhm.
mean, it's become almost a universal symbol of Islamic identity, even in places that have their own distinct architectural heritage. And, for a lot of newly formed nations in the 20th century, they were trying to forge a sense of national identity. And that grand Ottoman style, it kind of served as this ready-made symbol of Islamic power heritage.
So it's not just about aesthetics. It's about tapping into a shared history,
Yeah.
making a statement about identity,
Mm.
and even, wielding influence on the world stage. It's fascinating how architecture, it's more than just bricks and mortar.
Absolutely. But it's also important to remember that this global dominance of the Ottoman style, it hasn't been without its critics.
Yeah.
There's been some debate within the architectural community and even among Muslims themselves about, whether relying so heavily on that one particular style, if it stifles creativity, if it limits the exploration of new architectural possibilities.
Oh, okay. Low controversy.
Yeah, yeah. There's some who are calling for more diversity in mosque design. They want architects to draw inspiration from a wider range of sources, create mosques that really reflect the unique needs and identities of their communities.
So what are some of the alternatives? What does the future of mosque design look like?
Well, there are some really incredible architects around the world who are pushing the boundaries, redefining what a mosque can be. They're experimenting with new forms, materials, concepts.
Hmm.
They're drawing inspiration from Islamic art and geometry, local traditions, even cutting-edge sustainable technologies.
Okay, give me some examples. I need those visuals. What are we talking about here?
Sure, sure. One really striking example is the Senkakler Mosque in Istanbul, Turkey. It was designed by this renowned architect named Emre Aralat.
Okay.
And it's a minimalist masterpiece. It really blends seamlessly with the natural landscape.
Mm.
So instead of those towering domes, ornate decorations, it uses light, shadow, simple geometric forms to create a space that's incredibly serene, contemplative.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. It sounds like a world away from those really elaborate Ottoman-style mosques.
It is, but it's no less powerful in its impact. It challenges our preconceptions of what a mosque should look like, and it shows that there's room for innovation within Islamic architecture.
Are there other mosques that are kind of breaking the mold like this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another great example is the Islamic Cultural Center and Mosque in Reutlingen, Germany.
Okay.
It features this contemporary design that incorporates traditional Islamic elements, but in a really modern way. They use glass, steel, wood to create a space that's both visually stunning and environmentally sustainable.
So it's not about, like, rejecting tradition. It's about reinterpreting it for a modern age.
Exactly. It's about finding new ways to express those timeless values of Islam while also reflecting the evolving needs and aspirations of Muslim communities around the world.
What's really striking me is just how much thought, intentionality goes into every aspect of mosque design. From the grandest architectural statement to the smallest detail. I mean, we've talked about domes and minarets, light and shadow, the orientation towards Mecca. But what about those mosques that don't necessarily have the resources for those elaborate designs? What about the more everyday mosques, the ones you find in local neighborhoods? What can we learn from those?
That's a great question. And I think, often the design of a local mosque, it speaks volumes about the specific needs, the character of the community that it serves.
So even a mosque that might not make it into the architecture textbooks, it can still tell us a lot about the people who built it, the values that they hold dear.
Absolutely. You might see mosques in immigrant communities that blend architectural elements from their home country with elements from their new surroundings. And it creates this really cool visual representation of their hybrid identity.
It's like cultural fusion,
Yeah,
but expressed through architecture.
exactly. And you might find mosques that, prioritize functionality, accessibility over elaborate decoration,
Right.
Catering to the practical needs of a busy, diverse community. Think multi-purpose spaces that can be used for prayer, for community gatherings, even educational programs.
So whether it's a grand statement of faith or a humble neighborhood gathering place, each mosque has this unique story to tell.
They really do. And that's why it's so important to look beyond the surface, to consider that social, cultural, historical context that shapes every single mosque, from the most iconic to the most humble.
This has been an incredible journey. I feel like I could spend a lifetime exploring the world of mosques and still only scratch the surface.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? There's always more to discover, more layers to uncover. Mosques are constantly evolving, reflecting those changing social, cultural, even political landscapes of the communities they serve.
I'm starting to think that, every mosque is like a little mystery, just waiting to be unraveled.
It is. It's an invitation to explore, to learn.
So to all our listeners out there, I've got a little challenge for you. Next time you see a mosque, don't just walk by.
Yeah.
Take a moment, really look at it. What catches your eye? What stories do you think its design is trying to tell? What can you learn about the community it serves?
You might be surprised by what you discover.
This has been fantastic. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of mosque. I mean, we hope you've gained some new insights, maybe even a newfound appreciation for these fascinating, complex structures.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into the world around you.
It's amazing to think that these buildings that were, designed for prayer and reflection have also been like these centers of intellectual activity for centuries. And it makes you wonder, what other surprises are kind of hidden within those mosque walls?
Well, we've talked about the grand architectural designs, the symbolism, the community gatherings, but there's one more aspect of mosque design that I think is worth highlighting. It's something that often goes unnoticed, but plays a really subtle yet significant role in shaping the experience of anyone who steps inside.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Give me one of those aha moments. What are we talking about here?
Light and shadow.
Okay. I mean, every building has light and shadow. So what's so special about how it's used in mosques?
Well, think about it. In a lot of traditional mosques, you have those small, high windows
Right.
that filter light into the interior. And that creates a sense of ethereal beauty, a connection to the heavens. But it's more than just aesthetics. The patterns of light, they change throughout the day. And it adds this sense of dynamism to the space.
It's like the building itself is breathing, responding to the movement of the sun.
Exactly. And then you have that contrast between those brightly lit areas and the more shadowy spaces.
Right.
And that can evoke a sense of mystery, of introspection.
Yeah, it's like those shadowy corners are inviting you to, to pause, to reflect, to kind of connect with a a deeper sense of spirituality. I definitely felt that in some of the mosques I visited.
And, in modern mosques, architects are finding new ways to play with light and shadow. You might see skylights that just flood the prayer hall with natural light,
Oh, wow.
creating a sense of openness, connection to the natural world. Or
Yeah.
you might see, strategically placed artificial lights that highlight certain architectural elements or create this really dramatic interplay of light and shadow.
It's like they're painting with light, using it to enhance the beauty and the spiritual impact of the space.
Exactly.
It's amazing how something so simple can have such a profound effect.
It really is. Light and shadow, they evoke a sense of awe, inspire contemplation, even create a feeling of transcendence. It's a really powerful tool that architects have been using for centuries to shape our experience of sacred spaces.
This deep dive has been a revelation. We've gone from debunking stereotypes to exploring hidden histories, from like sensory journeys inside mosques to the geopolitics of design. It's incredible how much there is to learn about a topic that might seem straightforward on the surface.
And it just goes to show there's always more to discover, always more layers to uncover. Mosques are constantly evolving. They reflect the changing social, cultural, even political landscapes of the communities they serve.
Well, on that note, to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of mosques. We've only just scratched the surface, but hopefully you've gained some new insights and a new appreciation for these fascinating and complex structures.
And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.